It is the next episode of Buried in Time. We're getting a little bit uncovered. A little bit of this time is being shaken off, like in Kill Bill, where she's trying to dig herself out and all that. I figured I'd start this episode off with just another part of the headlines here. We can check some stuff out. I might do one of these at the beginning of each episode if we're back at Gage's place to go and kind of shed some more background on this, because that's what it comes down to, is getting a little bit more background. Like I said, getting pieces put together as you go.
Will return after a word from our sponsor.
Now, we already saw this, so...
The heads of ministry will continue to meet with Symbiotry representatives today in the Assembly Hall of the United Ministry Complex. These talks were requested by several member races as a forum in which to discuss the place of time travel technology in the symbiotry of peaceful beings. Today marks the beginning of the third week of negotiations, yet there is still no end in sight. Sarah Michaels is standing by at the United Ministry Complex with a report.
Let's see what she has to say.
Thank you, Mark. The main factor protracting the discussions is the inability of the Symbiotry to decide what should be done with the technology. The representatives have formed three distinct factions whose strongly opposing views have caused them to remain tenaciously entrenched in a deadlock. While one group believes we are committing the unforgivable act of hoarding a vital technology, a second supports the Symbiotry tenet that each race has sovereignty over its own technologies. The third contingent, which has grown in strength since the arrest of Agent 5, contends that time travel represents a threat to every race of the Symbiotry and should be destroyed altogether. Even though most attending races strongly disagree with humanity's sole ownership of the technology, our heads of ministry refuse to acknowledge their arguments, citing its inevitable misuse as their foremost concern. Therefore, barring Symbiotry action, it is unlikely that the status of time travel as a proprietary technology of Earth will change.
Let's see.
The opinion originally held by the majority of races represented at the talks is that time travel technology is an invaluable tool for self-discovery and, as such, should not be denied to any race. However, the Loxoni abandoned this position last week in favor of destroying the technology. Presumably, this sudden change of opinion was due in large part to the arrest of Agent 5, an unfortunate illustration of the danger of time travel.
So this tells you about who the Loxani are, which is interesting. I don't know that I've ever actually read this before, which is pretty cool. There's a lot to it. Who wants to know about Loxani? This one I'll skip. You can pause the video if you want to go and check it out. I just want to keep going with these.
The Dorloon and Zangtrakar, on the other hand, have continued to cling tightly to their convictions. They're of the opinion that this technology is far too important to be buried because of paranoia. Time travel, the Zangtrakar argue, is like any other powerful tool. It represents a danger only if the user doesn't have the insight to take the proper precautions. And if care is taken, there should be no reason whatsoever to fear what should be the greatest advance the Symbiotry has ever known.
Got the
Dorloon.
Zangtrakar. Stuff. Oh wait, we already did them. The Symbiotry, that's important. So the Symbiotry of peaceful beings. I just took a dump so big I can't talk. Also referred to as the Symbiotry of peaceful beings is a consortium of peaceful races from throughout the galaxy who have come together for the purpose of sharing technology and culture. Earth was admitted into the Symbiotry in November of 2318.
The Dorloon, perhaps Brandon Farling, the Dorloon emissary, stated the feelings of these two races most eloquently. all be in touch with our pasts. Each race can now know the truths of its history. No longer must time be wasted with painstaking research and endless conjecture, only to arrive at an uncertain understanding of the events that shaped history. The answers, all the answers, lie within our reach if only we have the will to grasp for them.
Yeah, so...
Despite being recently abandoned by the Kryn, two of humanity's staunchest supporters, the Sorolans and the Tsar, have continued to defend our right to autonomy over time travel technology. Like those that favor dismantling it, these two races would rather leave their past buried than risk losing it altogether. But unlike the others, the Sorolans and Tsar believe that humanity harbors a maturity beyond its years and can be entrusted with preserving the sanctity of history.
So the Kryn. The reason that I'm not reading these off and going through them so much is because it's not quite as important. It's not quite as important as what the main article is. These are just kind of references, right? So you kind of know what's going on and who they are, but it isn't necessarily huge on the story, so it's cool to check out, right? Also, I'm just going to make this a separate, like, addendum episode.
Despite being
What's
recently
going on?
abandoned by the Kryn, in fact, they suggest that our closeness to our violent past makes us even better suited to manage time travel, as the dire consequences of the misuse of technology still stain our racial memory. Unfortunately, theirs is a minority opinion. The prevailing response to this argument is that Earth's record with time travel speaks for itself. In just 10 years, there have already been incidents of deliberate historical sabotage, the latest of which allegedly involving an agent of the Temporal Security Agency.
They're not wrong. So the TSA is who we work for, right? And this is, of course, before the 2000s. But this is the Temporal Security Agency, which is in charge of time travel, and as they mentioned, only humans have time travel. And that's what all these other races are pissed off about. It's like, they're like, well, hey, we should get it too.
That our benefactors, however, dismiss the Elliott, Sinclair, and Gage Blackwood incidents as aberrant acts by disturbed individuals, rather than a weakness of humanity as a whole. And they ask, as a sign of good faith and trust in the newest member of the Symbiotry, that the future of time travel technology be left to our discretion.
Elliott Sinclair was what happened in the first one. If you recall from episode 1, I believe, I was talking about it with the action figures. But that was the whole premise of Journeyman 1. And so that would be an incident with time travel, and now, of course, Gage and that sort of thing is another one.
The third viewpoint, which was originally held only by the Unwa, is that the existence of time travel technology represents a threat to the history of every race in the Symbiotry. For this reason, these races feel that all existing time machines should be completely dismantled. Following the arrest of Agent 5, the Loxoni changed their allegiance from petitioning for the release of time travel technology to requesting its destruction.
Wow. I might have already clicked that.
The third view, they were joined by the Kryn, for whom this represents a break in their long-standing tradition of fervently supporting every race's right to sovereignty over its own technologies. The Loxoni now proclaim that if not destroyed, the technology must at the very least be put in the safekeeping of an elder race of the Symbiotry. They cite security as their main concern. Like the others that share their goal, they feel that humanity lacks the necessary discretion to control such a powerful tool. As a side note, it should be mentioned that the Loxoni themselves are among the eldest races of the Symbiotry.
Who was offering for that? They say the
They were
Kryn,
joined
right?
by the Kryn.
No, the
This
Loxoni were
represents
saying
a
that.
break.
Ah, okay.
Despite the arguments made by the Symbiotry envoys, the general opinion of the heads of ministry so far appears unswayed. Michael Rozhenko of the Northwest Asia Collective rebutted that the danger of time travel falling into the wrong hands and being used to change history, however slight, is still too great to even consider releasing the technology. It must be realized that time travel has not only the power to unlock the secrets of history, but also unparalleled potential for destruction. Few could argue that it would be foolish to give such a tool to anyone, regardless of its intended use. On the other hand, it's also too late for it to be destroyed, as was pointed out by Chancellor of Law Rick Allen, when he stated that the technology has already been created and can therefore be recreated.
Also a good point.
Chancellor Allen emphasized his point by attesting that if all known time travel technology were destroyed and a new time machine built without government knowledge or approval, there would be no way to intervene in the actions of the illicit time traveler. He would have free rein to rewrite history to his liking. Unfortunately, such scenarios are all too likely, as was proven by the Elliott Sinclair incident and the current trial of Gage Blackwood.
They bring up some good points. This really has the whole genie in a bottle, or genie released from the bottle sort of vibe about it, right? Because, well, you can destroy it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to go away and be controlled anymore because people know that it exists now. So, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and just make these little supplemental addendum things. Add one every so often when we come back to gauges. It's not going to be part of the main thing because everybody wants to necessarily see that probably. So, yeah, we'll go back into the regular action here. See ya on that episode.